One lonely cowboy rode into a town that had forgotten how to dream. Hank was a man of few words and many scars, a wanderer whose life had been as rough as the cracked earth under his boots. One fateful day, at the raucous old saloon where fortunes were lost and found, he saw her, Lillian Lou, a woman whom everyone had dismissed because of the way she looked. But to Hank, her gentle smile and unwavering spirit shone brighter than any star in the western sky. In a moment fueled by a mix of wild impulse and tender compassion, Hank took Lillian's hand and vowed to love her for who she truly was, right then and there. Little did either of them know, that single act of bravery would ignite a journey filled with laughter, sorrow, adventure, and the kind of love that defies all odds. Before we start the story, leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe to support our community. Your support means a lot to us. Now, enjoy the story as we continue. Hank rode alone along a dusty, endless road. His horse, Rusty, was as tired as he was, and the landscape around them was dry and empty. Every day, Hank faced the harsh winds of the frontier, and every night, he camped under a sky full of shining stars. Despite his struggles, Hank had a heart that always looked for the good in life. He remembered the stories his father once told him about hope and honor, even in the toughest of times. With each sunrise, Hank promised himself that he would find a place where kindness mattered, a place that felt like home. Yet, for many years on the road, that promise was like a far-off dream. One hot afternoon, as the sun beat down on the cracked earth, Hank came upon a small frontier town. He could see the old wooden buildings and the buzzing life of a community that, despite its rough edges, had a spark of hope. The town's heartbeat was centered around one place, the old saloon. It was a building full of laughter, song, and sometimes even tears. Inside, the room was filled with the clatter of glasses and the sound of a piano playing a tune that seemed to dance with the spirit of the West. Hank stepped into the saloon with a quiet determination. He was used to people looking at him with suspicion, an outsider with a past full of secrets. But tonight, something unexpected was waiting for him. At one corner of the room, by the bar, sat a woman who caught his eye immediately. Her name was Lillian Lou. The other patrons whispered unkind words about her size, calling her names that hurt deeply. Yet there was an undeniable warmth in the way she laughed at a gentle joke from an old friend, and the kindness in her eyes when she offered a smile to someone in need. In that moment, Hank saw not a label or a burden, but a brave and beautiful soul who had been cast aside too soon. Lillian had her own story. Once, she had been the center of attention, but life had taken unexpected turns that left her feeling lonely. Abandoned not only by fate but also by the judgmental eyes of a town that couldn't see beyond appearances, she found solace in simple acts of kindness and hope. The saloon was noisy and wild, yet in the chaos, a quiet understanding formed between Hank and Lillian. Hank had always believed that true beauty comes from within and that every person carries a spark of light. With his heart pounding, he walked over to Lillian and introduced himself in a soft, sincere voice. The conversations that followed were simple, like a gentle stream flowing on a warm day. They spoke of dreams, missed chances, and the hope that every new day might bring better fortune. The other patrons at the saloon could hardly believe what they saw as the two formed an instant, deep connection. Then came the moment that would change both of their lives forever. With a wild gesture that stunned everyone in the room, Hank declared his love for Lillian in front of all those gathered there. In that impromptu moment, he asked her to be his wife, and without hesitation, Lillian said yes. In a swirl of cheers, hoots, and clinking glasses, a marriage was born right then and there in that old saloon. The crowd may have whispered and laughed at first, but something magical was unfolding. Two souls, both having endured the bitter winds of life, found a warm embrace in each other. Their union was like a beacon in the darkness, a spark of hope that reminded everyone that sometimes the heart sees what the eyes cannot. After the wedding, Hank and Lillian set off together into the unknown. Their journey was not without challenges. The roads were rougher than they had imagined, and the wide open spaces held both beauty and danger. But together, they discovered that every hardship could be made easier by sharing the burden with someone who truly cared. They camped under the stars, shared simple meals, and talked late into the night about the dreams that had kept them going. Hank would recount memories of his past travels, of days when hope seemed lost but the magic of a kind word had rekindled his spirit. Lillian, in turn, revealed small secrets about her own struggles and the lessons she learned from the unkindness of the world. Each day was a new chapter in their adventure, a mix of laughter, tears, and moments of quiet understanding. And even though the world around them could be unforgiving, together, they found the strength to keep moving forward. Hank and Lillian rode out of town on a cool morning, the air crisp and filled with promise. Every day on the trail was a test of their strength and hope. The dusty paths wound for miles, sometimes through steep hills and rocky lands. Yet, even in these hard times, the pair found ways to laugh and help each other. The couple faced scorching heat during the day and bitter cold at night. Sometimes, they had to stop and rest under a tree or in a little cave. Hank would often share stories of the past as they nursed small fires under starry skies. Lillian, with her warm eyes, listened and smiled. Even when the journey was too tiring, their love made every mile seem lighter. As days turned into weeks, Hank and Lillian discovered that even the smallest act of kindness could make a big difference. When Hank stumbled on rough stones, Lillian would help him up with gentle words. When Lillian was anxious about the unknown, Hank's deep and calm voice reassured her, "We will face it together." Each challenge, whether it was finding food and water or dealing with sudden storms, made their bond stronger. One evening, as the wind blew softly across the plains, the couple sat together. The whispering breeze reminded them that the world had many secrets and that life was a blend of joy and sorrow. Hank would say, "My dear, every gust of wind carries stories of the past and dreams for the future." And Lillian would nod, thinking of the kind words that had saved her before. Their journey was not only one of miles but also of heart and spirit. With every passing day, even though the road was rough and tiring, the lessons they learned from nature, its patience, its fierce strength, and its gentle calm, made them brave and hopeful. Their hearts grew fuller, and they began to see that trials on the road were only stepping stones to a future filled with promise. Suddenly, a group of rough-looking bandits jumped out from behind large boulders and rocky crevices. Their faces were hard and their eyes glinted with mischief. The bandits demanded that Hank and Lillian surrender everything they had. Hank's heart pounded in his chest, and his hand moved slowly toward his worn-out revolver. But even in that dangerous moment, Hank's mind raced not only with fear but with the thought of protecting the one he loved. Lillian stood tall by his side, though fear danced in her eyes. In that dark moment, their fate seemed to teeter on the edge of a knife. Hank took a deep breath and spoke in a strong, clear voice, "We have little to give, but we have our hearts and our honor. We will not be bullied." His words were simple, yet they carried the weight of every trial he had faced in his lonely journey. Lillian, though quiet, gave a brave nod as if to say, "I believe in us." In a sudden burst of action, the bandits lunged forward. A quick struggle began amid swirling dust and clashing words. Hank's training from many lonely years on the trail helped him dodge and parry the attacks. At the same time, Lillian, who had always been seen as gentle and kind, found a well of inner strength that surprised everyone. With a firm step and a focused look, she grabbed one of the bandits by his arm and pleaded, "Please, we mean no harm. Let us go in peace." Her words, filled with unexpected determination, made the rough bandits pause. In that brief silence, Hank's quick thinking and precise aim disarmed one of the ruffians. One by one, the bandits realized that these two were not an easy target. The leader of the bandits sneered, but with a series of swift moves that combined both courage and teamwork, Hank and Lillian managed to drive the attackers away. After the danger passed, Hank and Lillian tended to a small hurt and took stock of what they had learned. There was no malice in their hearts, only a reminder that sometimes the world could be as mean as it was beautiful. Sitting on a rocky ledge, with the sun slowly climbing back into the sky, they talked quietly about how every close call made them both stronger. Hank gently cleaned a small cut on his arm while Lillian comforted him, saying, "Every scar tells a story, and every story is a lesson." That day, they vowed never to let fear rule their lives. They understood that even when bandits attacked, the true strength lay in standing firm for what was right, and in using both courage and compassion. The valley, once a scene of violence, turned into a silent classroom that taught them the real meaning of loyalty and the power of true partnership. After the attack, Hank and Lillian knew that they needed a safe place to rest and heal, both their wounds and their tired hearts. Their journey brought them to a wide, green valley hidden between gentle mountains. It was a place where a clear, bubbling stream and soft meadows offered a much-needed refuge. The valley was a land of quiet beauty. Wildflowers danced in the gentle breeze, and tall trees stretched their branches towards the sky. Birds sang cheerful tunes as if celebrating the arrival of these two brave souls. Hank and Lillian set up camp near the stream. They spent long days gathering water, picking wild fruits, and sharing stories around the campfire. Here in the valley, the weight of past trials began to lift. Lillian's eyes, which had seen harshness and cruelty, started shining with a genuine, untroubled light. Hank began to see the valley as a symbol of hope, a place where every hurt could heal and every heart could mend. Every night, as the fire glowed softly and the stars twinkled in the night sky, the couple talked about the lessons of the day. They spoke in gentle voices about their dreams and their fears. Lillian, who sometimes doubted herself because of the cruel words she had heard before, learned that her value was not measured by what others said but by the warmth of her heart. Hank, sitting close by with a thoughtful gaze, reminded her, "You are beautiful because you are kind. Every smile you share makes the world a little brighter." Together, they promised never to let the harsh voices of the past dim the light of their love. In the quiet of the valley, nature revealed its own magic. There were moments when the valley seemed to whisper secrets of old tales and ancient wisdom. The bubbling stream taught them about the flow of life, sometimes gentle, sometimes rushing, but always moving forward. The swaying trees reminded them that even when storms come, there is strength in remaining rooted in love and hope. Over the weeks, the valley healed not just their wounds but also their weary souls. They made friends with the land, a family of deer that came to drink by the stream, and a playful squirrel that darted around their camp. These simple connections filled the days with a sense of belonging and wonder. Hank and Lillian hurried to secure their camp. They tied down loose items, gathered their belongings, and found a sturdy old barn that once belonged to a kind homesteader. Inside the barn, they found a bit of refuge. Rain pounded on the roof as the wind tore at the sides of the building. Inside that creaky barn, the storm's fury made everything seem uncertain and wild. Lillian shivered under a worn blanket while Hank built a small fire in a safe corner to give them warmth. As thunder rumbled overhead and lightning split the sky, the couple huddled close for comfort. In the midst of the storm, when fear might have easily taken over, Hank reached for Lillian's hand. "We are safe here," he whispered gently. The storm, with all its terrible noise, began to feel less like a threat and more like nature's reminder of how precious every moment of warmth and kindness truly was. Lillian, gazing out through a small window at the swirling rain, felt that same truth. Even during the hardest storms, our love is like a little light that the darkness cannot take away, she said softly. Together, they talked about their dreams for tomorrow, promising that after this storm, they would continue on, stronger and more united than ever. The long, dark hours of the storm taught them that real strength is not measured by the battles one fights alone, but by the comfort and trust shared between hearts. When the storm finally subsided, leaving the barn wet and the land washed clean, Hank and Lillian emerged hand in hand. They looked at the world with renewed hope, a world that had survived yet another trial and had shown them that the darkest nights always give way to a bright new day. Not far from the valley, in a small settlement on the edge of a wide prairie, Hank and Lillian met a kindly old woman named Maggie. Maggie had a warm smile and a heart as big as the wide open skies. She welcomed them into her humble home with homemade bread, a fresh cup of tea, and stories of days gone by. Maggie's kindness was like a gentle bandage that eased the scars of their recent hardships. Maggie told them, "Every person you meet has a story. Some stories are sad, and some are happy, but they all teach us something precious." Hank and Lillian listened, realizing that every friend on the road was a mirror reflecting pieces of their own journey. Maggie's simple wisdom made them see that although people sometimes hurt each other with unkind words, there were still many hearts full of love waiting to be discovered. Not all those they met were warm and welcoming, however. In a dusty crossroads town, a group of rough traders laughed at Lillian's appearance. Their words stung like cold wind in winter. Hank stepped forward, defending her honor as fiercely as a rodeo cowboy defends his prized horse. "She is the bravest and kindest person I know," he said, his voice steady and strong. His words quieted the jeers, and though some doubted, a few saw the truth in his eyes. That day, Hank and Lillian learned that while friends can lift you up, critics can test your strength. They discovered that every encounter, with both friends and foes, was a lesson in understanding, kindness, and the value of standing up for what is right. As the days passed and the roads grew longer, the couple learned that they had to trust not only each other but also their own hearts. Hank would sometimes pause to think of all the kindnesses they had shared and all the obstacles they had overcome. Lillian would look at him, comforted by the trust in his eyes. They talked about the value of trust as they rested by quiet creeks, made camp under ancient trees, and shared simple meals. In those moments, the world seemed a little less harsh, a little more forgiving. Their journey was full of twists and turns, but with every passing mile, they discovered that trust could be the compass that always pointed them toward love and safety. They dreamed of a small farmhouse with a wraparound porch, a garden where Lillian could grow bright red roses and sunflowers, and a room where Hank could hang his favorite hat and reminisce about his daring days on the road. At night, they imagined sitting together by the fireplace, sharing stories with new friends, and laughing about the troubles they had overcome. Their journey eventually led them to a quiet valley much like the one they had once rested in, but this time it was ready to be their home. The land was soft and rich, filled with promise. With the help of a few kind neighbors they had met along the way, Hank and Lillian began to build a small house. Every nail and every board was placed with care, and every moment was a celebration of hope and perseverance. During the days of building, the couple learned new skills. Hank learned about farming and caring for livestock, while Lillian found joy in tending to the garden and baking fresh bread from the grains they grew. Neighbors dropped by, offering a hand or a kind word, and soon the little house began to feel warm with the glow of friendship. When the house was finished, the entire neighborhood gathered under bright banners and colorful decorations to celebrate this new beginning. Music filled the air, and laughter mingled with the soft clink of glasses in a toast to the couple who had shown that love can bloom even in the harshest of lands. At the heart of this celebration, Hank and Lillian stood together, hands tightly clasped, and looked around with grateful eyes. It wasn't just a house they had built, it was a home, a testament to all the struggles and victories of their journey. Their love had grown with every hardship, and now it shone in every corner of this new life. As the sun dipped low on that wonderful day, casting a warm glow over the little valley, Hank whispered to Lillian, "We've come so far, and I know there will be more storms and dark days ahead, but together we can always find our way home." Lillian smiled softly, her eyes sparkling with all the love and hope they had nurtured on the endless road. After settling into their cozy home in the valley, Hank and Lillian discovered that they were not alone for long. Neighbors from nearby farms and small towns came to visit. They brought warm smiles, fresh produce, and friendly greetings. Every visitor seemed eager to share a story or lend a helping hand. One sunny morning, a gentle family arrived in a small wagon. Mr. Jasper, Mrs. Clara, and their 2 young children introduced themselves as new neighbors looking to start a life in the valley. They were kind and full of energy. The children laughed as Hank showed them how to mend a fence while Lillian taught them to plant roses and sunflowers in a small garden patch. Each neighbor had their own hardships and hopes. They gathered on warm afternoons outside Hank and Lillian's house, sitting around a large wooden table to enjoy hearty meals, listen to old tales, and plan community projects. The family quickly became part of a growing circle of friends. They shared tools, seeds, and even small jokes that made every day brighter. With every passing day, the community grew stronger. Neighbors fixed broken fences, painted barns, and organized small festivals under the blue sky. Hank and Lillian became leaders in the small group, not because they had all the answers but because they always listened with open hearts. They showed everyone that a kind word and a helping hand could heal old wounds and bring new hope. In these simple acts of working together, the community learned the secret of living happily. That every person, no matter how different, has something special to offer. In their new valley, love and trust grew like wildflowers after a spring rain. The news spread quickly. Although the valley had seen storms before, this one had left the farmer, Mr. Reed, heartbroken. Hank and Lillian knew that sometimes even the kindest hearts need help when the world grows cold. With their neighbors, they organized a plan to help Mr. Reed rebuild his farm. Everyone pitched in. Some folks fetched food and warm blankets, while others repaired fences and cleaned up the messy barns. Even the little children lent a hand, carrying small bundles of hay or drawing cheerful pictures to remind Mr. Reed he was not alone. Together, the community showed that true strength comes when people support one another. While they worked, Lillian took a quiet moment to sit by the fire and remember the gentle lessons nature taught her. "Every storm must pass," she murmured softly, "and after the rain, we find new life and fresh hope." Hank joined her, resting his hand on her shoulder. Their eyes met, full of shared understanding that even the darkest clouds hide the promise of brighter days. Slowly, Mr. Reed's farm began to recover. The loss was great, but so was the spirit of the valley. The neighbors' care and the love shared by Hank and Lillian taught everyone that even unexpected obstacles can bring people closer together and create a more compassionate world. Hank called for a meeting on the wide front porch of their home. Everyone gathered under the shade of an old oak tree with a gentle breeze rustling its leaves. Hank spoke slowly and kindly. "Friends, I know our hearts are heavy today. But remember, we all have come here to share hopes and build a better life. Let us listen to one another and forgive, so that our community can stay as strong as the mountain." His words, simple and sincere, calmed the angry voices. One by one, the neighbors nodded and agreed to talk through the hurt. Lillian helped by sharing a small story from her own past, a time when someone had misunderstood her feelings. "I know it feels hard to forgive," she said softly, "but forgiveness brings healing, like fresh water that soothes a parched garden." By the end of the day, the friends came to see that disagreements are part of life, and working through them only made their bonds stronger. They promised to share their feelings, to listen well, and to forgive when mistakes were made. The warmth in their hearts returned, and the small community grew even brighter, filled with laughter and understanding. On one calm night, as the sky blanketed the land in a sparkly spread of stars, Hank and Lillian sat outside their home talking about dreams. They spoke of small hopes, a garden that would bloom forever, children laughing in sunny fields, and a future where everyone felt welcome. Their voices, warm and steady, mixed with the rustling of the wind. Each neighbor added their dream to the conversation. Mr. Jasper talked about opening a small library. Mrs. Clara dreamed of a town hall where everyone could gather to share art and ideas. Even the little children imagined building forts and playing games that would last all day. In every voice, there was a promise of a brighter tomorrow. Hank reminded them of the lessons learned on his long, dusty road. Every day gives us a new chance to be better than we were before. With love and trust, we can turn even the smallest moment into a miracle. Lillian added, "Kindness, like water, nurtures every seed. Let us be generous with it, so our garden of life grows strong and beautiful." The neighbors listened, their hearts uplifted by the simple yet profound wisdom. In that moment, they all understood that while the road ahead might have twists and turns, A loving heart can always light the way. One bright morning, the neighbors gathered again for a grand harvest celebration. They adorned the valley with ribbons, strung lights from tree to tree, and set up stalls with freshly baked bread, fruits from the orchards, and handmade crafts. The laughter and music echoed warmly, as if the valley itself were singing with joy. At the center of the celebration, Hank and Lillian stood before their friends and neighbors. Holding hands, they made a promise that every day, no matter the weather or hardship, they would continue to work together, to support one another, and to keep their hearts open to the beauty of life. Under the gentle glow of twilight, with soft voices and peaceful smiles all around, Hank said, "Let this day be a reminder that our love for each other and for our community can make all the difference." Lillian added, "No matter what happens tomorrow, we will face it together and with open hearts." In that moment, as the stars shone brightly overhead, every person in the valley knew that the promise of tomorrow was bright. They knew that in the unity of kind hearts and shared dreams, every difficult day could lead to a new beginning filled with hope, laughter, and love. Many years had passed since Hank and Lillian first met in that old saloon. The gentle rocking of the farmhouse porch and the soft murmur of the valley stream now served as reminders of every step that had brought them to this peaceful moment. Together with their community of friends and neighbors, they sat under the starlit sky, each face lighting up with memories of laughter, tears, and triumphs over hardship. Hank often recalled his lonely days riding the endless dusty roads, wondering if hope would ever find him. Now, as he looked around at the life he had built with Lillian and their neighbors, he smiled at the thought of how one small moment in a noisy saloon had transformed his life. Lillian, too, remembered the hurtful words that once stung like cold winter winds. Yet, in the warmth of community and under the protective shelter of true love, those wounds had healed into beautiful marks of courage. Their hearts had grown with every trial, every kind gesture, and every shared dream. Their story had spread far beyond the valley. Neighbors and visitors recalled how the couple had shown that kindness, courage, and forgiveness can turn even the harshest journey into a tapestry of hope. The legacy of their story was not just in the sturdy farmhouse or the blooming garden. It was in the lasting bonds of friendship that had been woven through every challenge and celebration. On a quiet morning filled with golden light, Hank and Lillian gathered the children of the valley by the old oak tree. With gentle voices and sparkling eyes, they began to share the tale of their adventures, the wild bandits, sudden storms, and unexpected hardships that tested their faith, as well as the moments of kindness that saved the day. "Remember," Hank said, "no matter how rough the road may be, your heart always knows the way." Lillian added, "And when you care for one another, even the smallest act of kindness can grow into something grand." Their words filled the children with wonder and hope, and as they listened, the seeds of compassion and resilience were planted in the young hearts. The valley, rich with stories of everyday miracles, celebrated every sunset as a promise of a new beginning. Every face told a tale of how love and trust could heal wounds and open doors to a future filled with laughter and new dreams. Hank and Lillian had turned their struggles into a shining example of how every life, no matter how challenging the path, could blossom into a legacy of hope. As dusk turned the sky into a canvas of brilliant colors, the community joined hands for one final moment of reflection. They marveled at how far they had come from the days of dust and loneliness to a future brimming with potential and promise. Hank softly vowed, "We shall always be a family, not just by blood or by the walls of this home, but by every act of kindness we share." Lillian smiled as she looked at all those gathered, knowing that their story would continue in every life they touched. Their journey was a never-ending song of hope, sung by hearts that believed in a better tomorrow. Thank you for joining Hank and Lillian on their heartwarming adventure through dusty roads, treacherous storms, and into a loving community. Their story reminds us that no matter the obstacles, the power of love, friendship, and forgiveness can light the way to a brighter future. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the Daily Stories YouTube channel for more inspiring adventures, heartfelt tales, and everyday miracles that touch the soul. Hit that subscribe button, like our video, and join our community as we explore stories that warm the heart and spark hope in every corner of the world. May you always find a reason to smile, even in the face of life's toughest challenges. Until next time, keep the fire of hope burning bright in your heart.